Hey, it's Chris. Liege Games, growing the beard out. I'm just a little too lazy to shave nowadays every day. Anyway, let's talk Kickstarters like usual. Let's talk my indie darlings, under the radar, lack of hype type of games that launched, funded in the first half of 2021. Let's give them a little bit of shout out. Now, I'm going to go through a couple honorable mentions, and then I'm going to go through the top 10. And let me be completely clear. I am completely and utterly not objective and completely subjective, because these are the ones that stood out to me as I have looked through now hundreds and hundreds of Kickstarter pages this year so far. And I said, okay, these are the ones that stand out to me. Not necessarily the most funded indie games, but the ones that I say, you know what? These look like very quality, very standout games that when backers get them, they are going to be happy with the product for the most part. You know, obviously people don't always, actually look at the Kickstarter page and look at the gameplay and, then end up selling it, a week or so after they get it. But, you can't avoid those. So anyway, those excluded, let's talk about which ones caught my eye, which ones maybe even you should think about late backing or checking out because, they're worth talking about. Because, like I said, there have been hundreds of these games that have launched on Kickstarter in the last 6 months. And so it is hard to keep up with them, and it is easy for a couple of these to fall through the cracks unless you're literally combing through every single one like I have been. And believe me, you don't want to be doing that on any regular basis. I do it because I do these, but otherwise, take my word for it. Okay, anyway, enough blabbing. Let's get to it. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking. Thank you for thumbing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for any of that. Just thank you for watching in general. So I appreciate it. I couldn't have made it this last 6 months of 2021 without you. So let's do this. You know what? We're actually going to start with two that are currently funding that are going to be just over the line in terms of ending in the second half, but they began and had most of their campaign in the first half of 2021. So I'm going to give them credit because I also want to give a shout out to them. First one is Overstocked. Now, if you caught this in the last couple weeks, this is a game where you are stocking your warehouse with these 90s sort of toys, sort of the Pogs, the Beanie Babies, that sort of craze that everyone went through during that time. Bad time. Just cut that out, burn that out of your memory. Anyway, but this is playing on the nostalgia factor, but don't let the cutesy art and the a little bit too bright for my personal taste of color scheme turn you off, because hidden underneath that sheepskin is a wolf in disguise in terms of the thinkiness, the strategy, and not necessarily directly take that, but some head-to-head competition in how you're playing this game. Because what you're doing in this game is you have these tiles that you're overlaying down here, and the interesting thing is you are going to be trying to get a majority or a large portion of the same one, but you don't want to have the most in a category in the center, because you are going to be taking cards and either playing them to your own personal area or you are playing them to this central area. So then the real interesting features and mechanics come into play, because you are trying to get a lot of what is popular, but if it's too popular at the end of the game, so if it has the most contiguous in the end of the game, then you get negative points for all of that. And so are you going to be trying to connect which one to which one? Are you looking at what other people are doing, trying to figure out which one's going to be best for you? How are you negotiating, because you only have 6 cards in your hand, and that's the game. It's deceptively simple, but also deceptively thinky as well. And if it's not on your radar and you like this style of easy to get to the table, but with an added amount of depth, I highly recommend you check this one out. So that is Overstocked in a nutshell. Now, they have 13 more days at the time of me filming this, and they're just barely funded, but it deserves more recognition, so shout out to them. Next up on the list is another one that is just funding, and you can make an argument, oh my gosh, he's going with one that's got 6 figures. Well, did you hear about Forests of Pangaia before it launched? I only covered it because I had it on my list, but I don't think anyone was going, you know what, I think Forests of Pangaia, they've got a $23,000 funding goal. I think they're going to get 10 times their funding. No one's saying that. But here we are with almost 3 weeks left in the campaign already at this point. So, there is something to be said of an absolutely stunningly aesthetic game, and this one has it in spades. And you are trying to grow these trees in this magical forest, planting seeds, sharing areas, trying to create patterns with these trees. Sort of, as I said previously, sort of what I thought what Photosynthesis, the game from a couple years ago that utilized the 3D trees, I thought that was more of what this truly is. And the wooden components to this just make it absolutely stunning. And it's, sort of a little bit of area control as well, as you're growing these different elements and these different types of trees across the hexagonally modular board. Now, unlike Overstocked, the price point for this is, considerably higher. It is going to be $66, but as you can see, premium wooden tokens as well as the tree tokens, and that's going to be expensive. And it's just looking beautiful. I would be surprised if this doesn't hit a lot of people's, wow, this is actually more than just a pretty game. If you think of the other one that I think of like that people sort of took in that ilk, Canvas. When it came out on Kickstarter, people were like, oh, well, this is a beautiful game. And if it has gameplay, that's even a plus because it's just so cool to look at. And then people got it and they said, wow, this is actually a really surprisingly good game. I thought I was just going to be getting artwork, and I got a game on top of it. So bonus. And that is what I think you're getting with Forests of Pangaia. That's what you need to know. You can check out the Kickstarter page. It'll be in the comments. The rulebook's out there. And you can see, look at all these beautiful components you're going to be getting on top of the solid gameplay. So check it out. Now, this one is going in the Wayback Machine way earlier in the year. Colossal Games funded this, launching in January, ending in February of 2021. And this is sort of the PUBG, the Player Unknown Battleground-esque, if you're familiar with the video game side of things, in a tabletop scene. And they do the mechanics of how you manage that type of mechanism in a board game very, very uniquely. Now, don't be fooled as well by the artwork, which may not be the most impressive that's out there, but it is again hiding a very unique way of playing, of scoring and keeping score in the first place. You have these skills and the objectives that you're going to be completing, including knocking out other characters, and you are filling up your bar to get the most points, and whoever gets the end of the bar, because each of these objectives that you do has a different value, a different length, and so how you want to fill that bar is up to you, and you're just trying to be the most famous by the end. This one, I think, flew under a lot of people's radars. I saw a couple of you comment in the comment section when I talked about this one that you were surprised by it. And again, I think this is one that's going to fly under the radar, that's going to be one of those dark horses indie games that is, inevitably probably going to get either retail distribution or it's going to be reprinted because people are going to realize how good it is. So it just looks like a solid game. You're going over this modular board, moving around your character, abilities, battling, manipulating, and just a lot of fun at that. The price point, again, is good, and you get the base game, or you can get a collector's edition down here of the fan favorites with one of the expansions, or the Superstar, getting it up to 6 players. So again, everything that you want is right on the page, videos, rulebook, and everything else. So again, reload, check it out. Now we get to number 10 on the list, some of the honorable mentions. This is Uranus. This is a cooperative 1 to 6 player game with asymmetric powers where you have simultaneous play, where you are trying to get off of the moons of Uranus, trying to escape before they're blown up as the asteroids are coming to destroy them. You are having to build up each of your own individual bases and help each other do so that all of you can make it off, because if all of you don't make it off, you lose. And it's got variable setup, simultaneous play, like I mentioned, and simultaneous play in a cooperative game is highly, highly underrated and underutilized. I just played Spirit Island the other weekend, and I love the simultaneous play that goes along with that. It streamlines games like this so much better, and it also takes away some of the alpha gaming, and so I love that too. Special player powers, special player boards, multiple turn phases where each player has to complete a turn, a portion of the round. Everyone has to do phase 1. Then everyone has to do phase 2. So it's keeping you together. It's not allowing you to go ahead. It's keeping it more engaged as well. So, I mean, I think it has all the makings of, I'm not going to say Spirit Island, but it has all the makings of a very, very solid co-op game. Everything is on there as well. Again, what do you need to know? 35 euros. 35 euros with budget shipping if you want to get it later. And I love seeing that. Like, hey, you want to get it, slower? Hey, pay less money. I'm okay with that. I think that's great. So, again, that is Uranus, number 10. Check it out. Next up, number 9, we have Doomlings. Doomlings, the card game. Another one that kind of came out of nowhere, got a ton of orders. Sort of like the Exploding Kittens sort of vibe-ish with a little bit more. And I mean, they raised $653,000 with 10,000 backers. That is incredible. This was funded at the beginning of March to the beginning of April. And it just looks like some solid card play, fun, when you just want something light on a game night. You have these variable players, these variable expansions that you're just going to be trying to adapt your species to make them the most survivable over multiple rounds. And you have to adapt to the catastrophes that are going to be trying to destroy you, and the most points at the end is going to win. So it's not a complicated, deep, tactically strategic game, but it's a card manipulation, asymmetric power playing type of card game just in front of you. Points, special abilities, ages, catastrophes, everything that you need to know, how and when you're choosing certain traits over others, how much take that is there to your ability to adapt and how you want to play it. And you get a bunch of expansions to go along with it if you so choose at the beginning. The $79 tier is getting you everything, including the Doomlings playmat there. So again, it reminds me very much of the Unstable Unicorns vibe, the Binding of Isaac, that whole thing. And so people like that. It's very appealing. It's very mass market, broad base, and I love seeing one of these come out of nowhere. So this one looks like it's just some good old-fashioned fun. Doomlings. Next up at number 8, we actually have Forest of Radgost. Now, another one that is a 6-figure digit raising, but again, did you know about it beforehand? Did you know about Serbian myth and lore beforehand? Well, this is the game that's putting it out there and putting it on the map by an individual designer. And it takes sort of the dungeon crawl, mythology, fantasy-esque theme and sort of takes the mechanics and twists them a little bit with this very unique system of just many, many different decks that you will be drawing from. And you are players traveling through this mythological forest trying to rescue 2 children that have become lost in it. And you have to find them and then make your way out while dealing with creatures that are randomly going to get in your way and try and stop you, try and stop them. You have the ability to go by yourself or to go as a group. And there are benefits and downsides to both in terms of timing, in terms of dealing with threats, everything along that side of things. Now, the biggest challenge, I think, was it was heavy plastic. Now, you can get just the miniatures here, which was interesting. You can get the pledge here with no miniatures, but as you can see, most of the people ended up getting the miniatures and everything else that went along with it, including the deluxe, forest faux leather dice cup, textured dice, and the extra miniature there. So, I mean, again, it was one of those where I'd love to see it at retail because I think the gray plastic is not always my favorite, but they hit all their stretch goals. You get a whole bunch more stuff in terms of encounters, in terms of everything that's going to go along with it. And again, it's going to be one of those that we're going to kind of see how this does because in the past you have seen dungeon crawlers not really use lots of decks, right? And so it's bringing that unique mechanic because the other thing you always hear me say in these campaigns is why this one over something else. And they went with this. They went with a new, different theme. They went with the different deck mechanic here of all these different decks that you're getting and being able to do the encounters all differently, so you're having a different experience each time. The tactics that I mentioned, the characters. So, I mean, all in all, it's a great different take on what we're used to seeing with a cooperative storytelling as opposed to just the dungeon crawl-esque side of things. So that is Forest of Radgost. Next up, number 7 from Stone Circle Games. This is Battle for Biternia Pixelvania. This is the expansion to the original Battle for Biternia. Now, why am I mentioning this game? This game only had 340 backers. It only had $16,000 raised. But I'd say, and I'd argue, pound for pound, it goes up against all of the bigger boys in terms of the MOBA-esque games where you are selecting a number of characters, asymmetric powers on your team to go head-to-head against another team of similar ilk. And I think the pixel, I know it's not everybody's favorite, but the mechanics that go along with this, the solid nature of it, gets definitely a hard-hitting seal of approval. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. You know, Space Biff put his review out, I think a couple weeks or a couple months ago, with a glowing review from that side of things. So, you know, if that is your ilk, now again, obviously it's a 2-person head-to-head type game. It's standees, so you're not really appealing to the miniature crowd. But, I mean, the price point is what it is for that reason. So you're getting the base game with the expansion for $74. And, you know, that's pretty good for what it is. And because you're supporting a very small publisher in that sense. It's just, you know, it's just solid fun. I have a copy that they sent me and I'm going to be putting out a review for. So I'm speaking from firsthand experience here. So this is just a pleasant game with high tactical, very easy base decision making, but the asymmetry is abundant. And they take the fantasy theme and they make it their own. And it's just a pleasant game overall. Again, I think the aesthetic, just like a couple of these games that I mentioned, people just don't like sometimes stuff like this. And so be it. But if you don't mind it, if you don't mind ignoring the cover on the book and give the book a chance, I think this one might be worth a shot if this is your type of game in a head-to-head strategy type battler. That is Battle for Biternia, Pixelvania. Number 6 is actually Path of Light and Shadow Solstice from Stronghold Games, indie board and cards from their line of things, their heavier side of things. If you are not familiar, this is sort of an indie darling that came out, I believe, in like 2017 that sort of flew under the radar, is a combination of deck building and area control. Again, 2 things that we do not see a lot of, sort of a la Tyrants of the Underdark, if you will, but it took a different spin on it as well with the paths in the said aforementioned title name of Light and Shadow, where you are taking these cards and the number of cards that you are playing both have a value of light or shadow depending on what they are, and it leads you down a track, and the further you are on said path, the better your bonus is. So that is the gist of the game. You have these towers that you are building in various areas of the land, which is also the way you're recruiting areas of cards, because each area has their own separate deck that you're going to be drawing or getting from, and you're upgrading these cards, and they only have certain, 1 through 5 levels. But when you get to the better levels, I mean, you're again multi-use cards and how you want to use them. It is a great game if you like that. Now, I had trouble with the area control side of things, but the deck building element, if you're concerned, is very strong as well. The big concern and the big issue had been that some of the Kickstarter exclusive cards, these special characters called the Numeri, were not really available at retail, and so this game didn't get a huge retail presence or support. So a lot of people who loved this game, and let me be clear, the people who liked it loved it, we're always looking for those. And now with this, they are reprinting that, as well as the extras from the first one, and just adding more in this Solstice expansion that is giving you a new region, a new deck, a new board, a new faction, and a little bit of everything else for the price of $39. So for those that were, super piqued by this, it was everything I think that they wanted. and it's out there. So again, I think it's adding, and it reminds me a little bit of with that new deck, that new area board on the side, sort of the Champions of Midgard, if you will, where you play with this and then you never want to not play with it in the future. So I mean, again, definitely something that's worth checking out. The rules are out there, the videos out there, the skills are out there in terms of what you need to know and how to play. So everything is right there from the get-go. You're getting all the promos. Again, like I mentioned, those were the promos that were somewhat difficult to get last time. So with this game, if you want to get it and you want to get it all, it's better to do it now because, again, even though it raised, a ton of money, $88,000, I don't know what the retail side of things is going to look like either with this case. So that is Path of Light and Shadow Solstice. Next up, number 5. I'm going to go with this one because I really enjoyed this personally, and I think it's unique enough that it fits at, solo, multiplayer, cooperative as well, and that is the tile laying, mix 'em up, gear mashing, dive inside the Iron Giant, turn him off, and try and escape Mechanical Beast from Side Room Games. Now again, price point being really good, $24. You can see I'm a backer, so I have my review copy, but I'm getting a copy anyway. So I liked it that much. The manipulation is thinky, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a little bit of chaos. It's a little bit of randomness. It's a little bit of just fun when you don't want to be doing something too serious, but also don't want something too easy. Multiple plays in an hour, and just, quick, easy setup. And who doesn't love manipulating tiles like this? I love tile laying games. This does a great job. This was one that had already won, I think, Print and Play, our solo game on Board Game Geek from 2019. So the pedigree was there. You knew what you were getting. They just finally got it to print. And I mean, it raised $42,000. So as a $24 game, it's pretty good. And that's why Mechanical Beast, number 5. Number 4, Block and Key. A very interesting abstract type spatial block laying Tetris 3D in real life with 3D tower as part of it for 1 to 4 players. Again, I was a backer of this. I mean, that's how much I like this one personally. Again, very straightforward. What you see is what you get. You are building these shapes, trying to match the symbols on the cards in terms of the depth perception of the colors that match with this sort of setup. You get the clay blocks and you're just putting them on there, choosing from the bottom, deciding on how you want to get things to match up in that light. I say this as a non-spatial person. I'm excited to get this one. The retail presence on this one may be difficult because of the component quality that's going to be there. So I don't know what it's going to look like if it ever gets a retail version. So that in combination with my love for abstracts, I think this just looks like a very solid game. Anywhere from 1 to 4 players. And I think it's just unlike anything else that's out there. And so I think if you're interested in this, you really need to check this out. Again, it's a niche game. It's not going to appeal for everyone, but it's something that you could play family, all ages, gamer group, everything across the board. Again, price point is only $42, and you're getting these clay blocks that are going to be definitely a quality upgrade compared to whatever else comes out retail-wise. That's why Block and Key has to be number 4. Number 3, you may not have heard of this one. This is Rise of the Gnomes. I thought this was a very interesting concept. I was shocked that this not raise a lot more money than it did. It gives me very much the Spirit Island vibes of cooperative, competitive, sort of modular gameplay, asymmetric factions. It is a little bit more worker placement, resource management, but I think it was still very underrated, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see what this looks like when the reviews come out after backers get it. It funded at the end of March, beginning of April 2021. And you can see here that it's going to be a big box, 30 playable races. I think the biggest reason why it didn't fund more is because the price per entry was a little bit higher, $65, and the all-in was another $100. So that was not insignificant in that way. But with the plethora of the stuff you were getting, I mean, I would say that you're getting your money's worth. It's just one of those where I also wonder if, you do really need 30 races, right? And how asymmetric are they going to be? Are they going to be truly that different? You're going up against this serpent that is trying to stop you from being able to brew. ale. So that's just what you're trying to go through. And the question was, you can see all of these races here is, just like I mentioned, more, 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 and more. Again, it's going to be a very solid game. I think it's just a question of, is it too much? Now you can see again here, as always, one of my concerns, new player guide, cutthroat and competitive rules, cooperative and solo rules, rules references, additional race. I mean, like, there's a lot going on here. So this is not going to be a game that is nearly as easy or simple as pretty much every other game. This is probably the most complicated game on this list in general. So that is just a known that you need to be aware of prior to that. But apart from that, I mean, if that sounds of interest to you and that heavier side of things with the Spirit Island-ish vibe, with a different sort of, worker placement type theme too, that's Rise of the Gnomes. Number 3, check it out. Number 2, Hidden Leaders. I did the review for this, but I'm impressed by it. It raised over €250,000, has a very small, very light 2 to 6 player strategic card game of color manipulation, and only really 2 colors manipulating by these completely unique asymmetric characters in how they are moving these little pawns up and down a color track. Doesn't sound interesting, but how it plays is much deeper. You're getting a lot of cards, like I mentioned, and all of them are unique in how they're manipulating things. They have hilarious names, and the art is really good. And so again, it's very straightforward. It's easier to get to the table than most of the things I have played this year. The setup is easy. The card drafting system is unique. Again, I didn't think it was perfect. I would have liked a little bit of nuance in some of the beginning of the card that you are placing face down that gets flipped face up. That doesn't exactly work the way I thought it was going to. But all in all, it's a very, very solid game. And who wins is, whoever's in the lead. Red's in the lead, red wins. Green's in the lead, green wins. If they're both in the black zone, black wins. If they're both down at this end, then blue wins. So it's just a matter of how you want to manipulate things. The value of the Kickstarter, as you can see here, of all of the extra stuff that you're getting is definitely worth it. The price point was good at just €20. And so, I mean, it had 10,500 backers. Now, obviously, if there's 10,500 backers, there's going to be people that are buying this that won't like it, so you can probably get it at a relatively good price in the retail market. But if this is your ilk of light, easy to play things, playing multiple things in a game night, and being able to explain them rather quickly, this is a great game for that side of things. Hidden Leaders, check it out. And last but not least, Transmissions, the board game. This is a very unique game that raised over $200,000 that takes a different spin on the worker placement board game by using a rondel. This funded from April to May 2021, and let's check out briefly why it was so good. Now, again, they had these little robot miniatures that you are manipulating around the map. And the interesting thing is, the rondel portion of things is that you are able to manipulate any of these robots, not just your own personal one. And you're going to be using them to get pipes, to get ideas and items, and manipulating those as your resources to get the most victory points at the end of the game. Like I said, not very complicated, but it's just thinky enough to appeal to the heavier side of the crowd if they like that sort of thing. And it's not too heavy so that you can play with the family. All you're doing, like it says here, playing a card, move one, creating these ideas, collecting sets, or taking a chance and trying to build pipes and puzzles, or just finding items that are going to get you bonus points. The rules are there. The price point is good. You're going to get some stuff on the Kickstarter exclusive edition that you won't get at retail. So the value, I think, was there as well. The price point, as you can see, you could just get the miniatures if you wanted, but the basic game was $40. The deluxe was only $54 with all the stretch goals. And so I thought it was a very good price overall. A lot of good videos out there. And I mean, just a very interesting, unique take on things, as a sort of very good intro level worker placement with a different main theme and mechanic. So that is Transmissions at number 1. There you go. Quick, easy, dirty, quick synopsis. All of these links are down in the comment section below if you're interested in checking any of those pages out. As you saw on some of the pages themselves, you can lay back, I'm sure most of them you can probably get in on anyway, even if it's not on the page. You can always send them a message. You can always, contact them on Board Game Geek or social media. A lot of these guys are very receptive to that type of thing. So if it's not too late, definitely, if any of those pique your interest, check them out. Obviously, this list was also, of the couple hundred games I've checked out, very pared down. Plenty of other worthy candidates, but these were my top ones with my honorable mentions. Let me know if there were any other ones that really, 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 really appealed to you in the comment section below. I'm always interested to see what other people's main interests were beyond my own, obviously. And, just again, shout out to all the ones on this list that all funded and are doing really, really well. Whatever their funding was in the end, whether it was just barely over the funding or 10 times plus the funding. So it's just great to see that as indie games on Kickstarter in general. So everything going forward, I do this all the time. If you're new to this video, check me out. Subscribe if you want to see more of this. But either way, thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking. Stay classy. I'll see you around. Hopefully.